Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Some two really big sports stories that have come out today is Christian Eriksen going to Inter for just under £17 million on the initial fee, and Israel Folau signing a 1 year deal with the Catalan Dragons. I'm going to start with Christian Eriksen. I've already covered it on a video. I think Tottenham have undervalued him or sold him on the cheap, and Inter have done a great bit of transfer business. I'm surprised the whole transfer saga with Christian Eriksen has lasted this long. We know that clubs have been interested in him for about a year and a half. I think Inter have mugged Tottenham off, basically. They're building a squad to challenge for the Serie A title. They've got a good, decent, solid, high quality player on the cheap. And I don't understand why it wasn't done in the summer. Well, and if not in the summer, for whatever reason, why it wasn't done in the first week of this transfer window, because with the way Tottenham are playing right now, they need a bit of fresh blood in that squad. They need an injection of something. And for Christian Eriksen to go for so cheap and so little, it's really mind-boggling what they're doing at Tottenham. Considering that in the transfer side of things, they've been a little bit quiet in recent years, especially with that stadium build and the amount of money they pumped into the new White Hart Lane. Really surprised they let him go for so little. But time will tell whether it's a good signing by Inter and whether Tottenham regret that decision. But the team as a whole are not performing at the level that they should be. They're underperforming. Pochettino's got the sack. Mourinho's in. Mourinho's being Mourinho. He's complaining about everything, as usual. But he has been very critical about how Inter conduct themselves in the build-up to this transfer going through. In the Israel Folau news, Catalan have stuck their neck out. Super League are very unhappy with the fact that Catalan have signed Israel Folau. Very strongly worded statement. A lot of the other Super League clubs weren't happy as well, but because he's not officially banned and the NRL didn't, block his registration, he can go to any Super League or other NRL club. They said he wouldn't be welcome, but they didn't actually physically withdraw his registration rights. So it left the door open for a return to professional sport. Now, he hasn't played any professional sport for like 9 months. So it's going to be really interesting to see what his fitness is like, his match fitness, and how quickly he can adapt to the Super League game, considering he hasn't played rugby league for a decade, and that he hasn't really played any competitive sport for 9 months. And the whole legal controversy off the field, I mean, all that, he has been told that if he does one thing, his contract is terminated, immediate effect, and Catalan will be heavily fined. So that's something that is got to be bared in mind, that if he does step out of line, he's sacked, and it's in his contract. So he can't argue unfair dismissal this time. He has been told point blank, after you put pen to paper, you misbehave in any way, you're done. And Catalan have given him that last chance saloon. If he screws this up, I can't see a way back into professional sport for Israel Folau. So it's going to be really interesting. The fact that pre-season's now done for the Super League. It starts in a few days. How quickly he's brought up to fitness, and the the reaction of the fans, I don't think is going to be a pleasant one. I think it's going to be very hostile, the fan reaction. What is up? Well, not a lot really. I'm only going to do an hour live stream this evening. I'm not going to go on too long. I do have to get my flat sort of sorted out. I've got more tradesmen coming over to try and fix the plumbing situation on Thursday. So I've got to move my flat around a little bit, move the living room around, move the bedroom around a little bit, and pile things up in a corner and all that sort. Right, on the Newcastle United, we do know that they are getting close to a deal with Saudi investors. The fact is, though, that we've been in this position before with Newcastle. The club has been for sale for as long as the channel has existed. And every time we get close, it doesn't pan out. So when it comes to Newcastle United, I'm going to wait until an announcement is made where the club is sold, because there's been so much speculation about, Mike Ashley and who he's going to sell to. We know there are Saudi investors very, very close to purchasing the club, as reports have stated. But at the same time, until the club is fully transferred over to a new owner, I'm not going to report anything. Really, it's getting to the point now where every time another interested party comes along, be it Amanda Staveley or Peter Kenyon, and they're still in the pipework, it seems to not follow through. The Sheikh Zayed didn't follow through. Now, whether they've all come together or more investors are coming, we knew that there were other bids open, but it is taken to this point to get any kind of traction. And until a deal is done, there is no point reporting anything, because every time we get close to a deal being done for the club being sold, it doesn't follow through, and it collapses or it gets put on hold, and then it's more speculation, and that can't be good for the playing staff, the coaching staff. The lack of certainty has got to be a problem going forward, because that will put off prospective investors and sponsors going, we don't know what's going to happen with this club. And the fact it's dragged on as long as it has isn't great. And I would much rather see a British owner buy the club, personally, and someone who is local to Newcastle, rather than an overseas buyer. But modern football being what it is, the highest bid is going to take the club. And I think Mike Ashley has devalued the club from where it was at its peak at about 660 million, when it was the second wealthiest club in England, to where it is now, which is half that value. And I think he's still overvaluing the club, because they've not been in Europe and European football for a long time. They've not been close to competing for a trophy since the late 90s. So it's 20 years since they've been close to competing for a trophy. Their best players are gone. The squad they have now is a lesser squad than when he bought the club in the first place. That's my personal opinion. I think the quality of the youth academy is not what it was. They need to obviously severely invest in that. And they've gone through so many managers. There's no stability at this club. This is why the club is not taking that next step. This is why there's been 2 relegations. So you can make of it what you will. And yes, I have had plumbing problems for a long time, but I think that's a long-standing issue since before I rented the place. I mean, I've been here now for 3 months, 4 months, but it's a long-standing issue since before I even got the keys to the flat. So, yeah, we had massive plumbing problems last week, where I had to have an emergency call out, and my flat was flooded, and my neighbour's flat downstairs was flooded. So, yeah, it's been a bit mental, but it's not the only issues with the flat, and I can't say too much because there's going to be some legal action taken, but it has dragged on and been really frustrating, really stressful, and not. The Kobe Bryant, I've done a video on it. We now know that 9 people are confirmed to have passed away, including his daughter, his daughter's friend, his daughter's friend's parents. Everyone appears to have known each other, everyone on that aircraft. Until a crash report is published, we can only speculate, and speculation is wrong at this time. But it's tragic. Obviously, Kobe Bryant in his time did have some off court controversies that have divided opinion. And to be honest, the amount of energy he was putting into the local community, his daughter's high school basketball team, for example, coaching young people. Since retirement, yes, I think he had found his calling. I think he had settled down off the court. But, you look at his playing career, and that speaks for itself. 5 times champion, 4th highest ever point scorer in the NBA. I think there's talk about inducting him to the Hall of Fame immediately. There's talk of retiring his jersey number, all this kind of stuff. But I think until the full facts are known about what has happened, it is incorrect to speculate. It is incorrect to say too much. But this is the 3rd high-profile sporting tragedy that's involved a private aircraft in 3 years. And that raises questions about, air safety when it comes to charter aircraft and private aircraft. It's something that is that's more of a wider issue. It's not just celebrities, but this is the 3rd high profile in 3 years private aircraft that has crashed carrying someone involved with professional sport. Is he a top 10 all time? Well, he's 4th all time in points, so. And his 5 championship rings will speak for itself. I'm not a big enough fan of the NBA to make that judgment. But you look at who he played with and who he is inspired to play. It speaks for itself. It speaks for itself, really. Will he be knocked out the top 10 in point scoring? It's a possibility. but some players are going to have to play out their skins who are currently active to get him out the top 10 of all time in scoring. So the way sport evolves and scoring percentages and points for and against and how defenses tighten up and how offenses have to work things out, it's an interesting one. Ben Stokes not been dropped. Well, they win the third. They win the fourth test. They win the series 3-1. But yes, there was that altercation with a fan. And I was discussing this at the weekend, actually, about the altercation with the fan, and I'll talk about cricket in general with a friend of mine. And some of the cricketers that may be brilliant players, but don't make my current playing 11. So players who are playing now and my all-time 11. And a lot of it is to do with what happens on and off the field and how they conduct themselves. And I look at my all-time 11 video, which is up on this channel in the cricket playlist. And there's a reason why I've selected those players in my all-time 11. There's a reason why I've selected, it doesn't matter, my all-time starting lineup of teams. There are reasons why certain players who may on the field be brilliant at what they do, but it's their on-field and off-field antics that have kept them off that list. And while he has been charged by the ICC for an offence, and he's made an unreserved apology, this is not the first time he's done something stupid. Let's not kid ourselves here. He does make the headlines a lot of the time for the wrong reason. Yeah, he keeps getting rewarded with awards and sponsorship deals and big contracts. So you have to ask the question of the culture of the sport. Am I surprised he's not dropped? Look, he's a match winner. He's a quality player. He's one of England's best players right now. Is he a divisive character? Yes. Is everyone loving him? No. Does everyone love him? No. But I think we can get a more all-round opinion of him when he's retired. And would he make my all-time 11? No. He wouldn't make my all-time 11. Not yet. He wouldn't even be close to my all-time 11 because there's still something else that could happen. And I honestly believe that with Ben Stokes, you don't know what you're going to get. He is a maverick, and off the field, and even on the field, he has proven himself to be a disciplinary nightmare for England. Yet they keep selecting him and they keep rewarding him with these big contracts and sponsorship deals, even with all his off-field antics. And in the court of law, he was found not guilty, and that's fine. But in the court of public opinion, he's as divisive as, Eric Cantona with the Kung Fu kick, or Roy Keane with what happened in Saipan, and he is as divisive a character as he is a quality character. That's my opinion, and I think when his career is said and done, then we can judge him fully. But I think, are you surprised he's not dropped? That's up for the squad. I mean, they won the fourth test. They've won the series 3-1. So in that respect, it was a right decision to keep him in the team. However, if these incidents keep happening on and off the field, does that become detrimental to England going forward? Does that become a problem for the squad going forward? It's like Finn Russell with Scotland. He's been kicked out of the Scotland squad for failure to report to training, breach of team discipline, breach of curfew, drinking too much, disrespecting the coach. Best player, but he's out. He's out the squad. So you've got to be careful how you juggle some of these superstar players, and they sometimes have rather large egos as well. Not all of them are humble and respectful. Some of them are utter arseholes. This is how life goes. Federer versus Djokovic semi-final. Who do you think will win? Federer obviously is not as young as he was, and Djokovic as well is not as young as he was. They've both had injury problems in recent years, but they're both two of the best players of all time. I don't know. It comes down to who can handle the conditions best, because obviously all the forest fires we've had in Australia, the complaints from players about the air quality, and fitness levels will play a very big part in who wins that match. And both players, well, look at the amount of titles they won. Now, Djokovic has been the best player in recent times, if you look at the record over the last few years. But it's not a given that Djokovic is going to win. It doesn't matter if it takes 3 sets or 5. It's not a given that Djokovic is going to win. And experience does play a part, and fitness plays a part. And we know that Djokovic and Federer both have had injury concerns in recent years. Djokovic has had quite a few injuries in recent years. So it's going to be who can survive the conditions. I think they're both pretty equal when it comes to playing and how they head to head. But if you look at the complaints from players in the build up to this tournament and the issues surrounding the tournament with the air quality complaints and the forest fires and such, that could have a part to play. The weather and the air quality could have a part to play, but I'm not going to pick a winner because I'm terrible at picking winners. But experience counts for a lot, and these are the two of the most experienced campaigners on the tour. So it's a toss up. You have a 50-50 chance of winning. There is no one for me outstanding favourite in that match. Who I think will win the Super Bowl on Sunday? Again, I got my pick for the Super Bowl wrong already. I think the Chiefs I think have a better chance. I'm going for the Chiefs on this one, but I'm most likely wrong. I've already been asked this question, but I'm going for the Chiefs on this one. I think they've taken that next step. I think they're ready to take the next step. But I haven't watched any NFL this season, so I can't really comment on what they've done this season. But I'm looking at how they played last season, and I think they'll have too much. I think they'll be the winners. But yeah, I mean, interesting questions. All different sports. We've discussed football. We've discussed basketball, cricket, tennis, NFL. Am I looking forward to the Six Nations? I always look forward to the Six Nations. I mean, I may not be able to watch every single game, but I'm always looking forward to the Six Nations, regardless of who's the favourite, who's not the favourite. I think this is, as I said in a previous video, that this is the most unpredictable Six Nations I think I can ever remember. 4 new coaches, the Finn Russell situation, the Saracen situation. Even with Wales, I mean, I think Wales have a blessing in disguise that Stephen Jones went to the World Cup because of Rob Howley's sacking because of betting breaches. But I think that's still going to have an impact on how Wales play. The aftermath of that, I think we've got a lot of attack-minded coaches. We've got teams who've had scandal, which how that's going to affect how they play and their dressing rooms, we don't know. Scott, without Finn Russell, are they better as a unit? Are they happier, more settled, or is that really divided the squad? England with the Saracen situation, same thing. Is it going to unite the squad or divide it? So I'm really looking forward to it. I think that the real unpredictability is going to be France. Fabien Galtier, he played in some very flair-orientated French sides that played some really exciting, open, off-the-cuff rugby. So that is something that I think we have to look out for, is what French team turns up. They could be the joker in the pack. The Italians are coming off the back of their best World Cup performance ever, and some good green shoots there. Wales get to another semi-final. It's a good, strong starting point, but they came sort of undone in the last 2 games of the tournament. Ireland, new captain, new coach. I think there's a lot of teams that have a lot of positivity around them. New ideas, new players coming in, new captains, squad, freshening up the squad. Scotland have a problem. They've lost their best player. There's clearly issues within that dressing room. You look at England, the Saracen situation. These are things that are still up in the air that are going to have consequences that are past the Six Nations, but are going to have consequences right now. So I'm really looking forward to it. The Israel Folau thing, I'm actually really surprised. Catalan were advised against signing him, yet they went ahead anyway. So the proviso of his contract is he cannot have any slip-ups. He's got to be squeaky clean. He cannot post anything on social media that is offensive. He's also got to behave off the field regardless. And I think any off-field ill discipline, he's done. He will have his contract terminated immediately, and Catalan will be heavily fined. Catalan taking a very, very big risk in signing him, and the other Super League clubs and the Super League board, and I'm assuming the Championship and League One clubs, because they could play them in the Challenge Cup, for example, are not happy either. So the RFL are not happy. The other clubs aren't happy, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. They've given him his last lifeline, in my opinion. It is only a 1-year deal. He has spent over a decade out of the sport, so it's going to be interesting to see how he adapts to how rugby league has evolved since he last played. I'm really surprised, you know, but Catalan are taking a huge risk, and it could massively backfire on them because he's proven that he will breach his contract. He's proven he has a disregard for legal paperwork and a disregard for a system. So, regardless of his religious views and his views on the LGBT community, okay, it was in his contract that he had to sign up to a code of conduct. He breached his contract. That's why Rugby Australia dismissed him. He was in breach of contract. I know he then took litigation and he took to court, and that got messy, and it's no one's come out a winner. Catalan are fully aware of the issues off the field with Israel Folau. They are taking a massive, massive risk. But they've done this before with Todd Carney. They've done it before with Greg Bird, two other players who had very colourful off-field issues. Greg Bird's had drug issues, caught with drugs on him. Todd Carney, known for his drinking and other illegal activities like driving out of license and all this kind of stuff and running from the police. So they've done this before where they've taken that stuck their neck out for players who've got colourful off-field issues, probably worse than Israel Folau. So they like going against the grain somewhat, but they've got to be very, very careful. Very, very careful. They like giving players second and third chances, and they have to be careful how they handle him. And Israel Folau, I think, has to think this is his last chance. The Kobe Bryant situation, I've discussed it. I don't think I'm going to discuss it anymore until we know what's happened with the crash investigation and what the authorities tell us has actually happened. I can do a career video on Kobe Bryant. I can look at, should the NBA retire his number? Should he be in the Hall of Fame without, first ballot waved off, in automatically? So we'll see what happens with the Kobe Bryant investigation over the accident, and of course, he lost his daughter's died as well. His daughter's friend's parents, another college basketball coach has passed. A lot of people have passed away. It's not just Kobe Bryant. There's several families grieving right now. But what is interesting is we can look at it, should the NBA get him into the Hall of Fame immediately, retire his number, and all that kind of his career numbers. We can look at that, but I don't want to continue to dwell on what's actually happened the other day, because I think enough's been said about that. We need the dust to settle, and we need to think about waiting for the crash report to come out. Yes, the Italian clubs have massively improved, and yes, they're bringing in talent now. They're developing talent now. This is why I think Italy shouldn't be underestimated. I think they can win a couple of games. I think Scotland are actually really in trouble. Scotland are in disarray, personally. I don't know what they want, why they want him. You've got to look at his talent. On the field, Israel Folau is an athlete. He's a talent. He's one of the most skilled rugby league, rugby union players ever to walk this earth. He's one of the top try scorers in the NRL of all time. What he did in rugby union as well. He is a known finisher. You give him the ball, he will score. He will create chances. He will create space. The issue is the off-field stuff. And the Super League board and the other owners and clubs were really against this. They're really not happy. There's an openly gay player who plays for Halifax, and he has released his own statement. He is shocked, appalled, and disgusted. All the clubs have basically reached out to the LBGTQ plus community. That's it. They've reached out to the LBGT community, bringing them in on board on awareness days and promoting that kind of stuff. So he's already created division. He's not going to be welcome at any Super League ground. He is going to get a lot of abuse from fans when he plays away from Perpignan. I'm not sure how the fan base in Perpignan is going to receive him either. But Rugby League have got their hands tied. I think legally they couldn't bar him from playing. He wasn't deregistered as a Rugby League player. Neither the Super League or the NRL, between them, deregistered him and said, you're not eligible to play this. We don't want him to play. He's not welcome, but they didn't actually officially deregister him and ban him. So, again, the Rugby League authorities have let themselves down because the NRL and Rugby League Australia and Rugby Football League here and the Super League didn't deregister him. He was eligible to register by a club, and Catalan obviously want to put the best team they can on the field. They want to put the best squad together. They want to obviously win back the Challenge Cup. They want to win the Super League. They want to win, both grand finals. They want to, get silverware to that club. They want to win. They want to be successful. And he is a free agent who is, available. He is a superstar on the field. It's the off-the-field issues with Israel that create the problem. But yeah, it doesn't look great. The RFL have said, yeah, but we didn't deregister him. That's our fault, and that is the RFL's fault and the NRL's fault. And the Australian Rugby League Commission, they didn't deregister him. They didn't come get their heads together and go, we can't have this guy in the sport. It's bad for our image. But then you look at some of the other players who've done some pretty bad things and been allowed back in the sport. They haven't got a leg to stand on to try and ban him. And yet, Folau hasn't come out and apologised, although he has stated this time that he will behave. How long that lasts? He said that last time and the time before that he would behave. He constantly breached his contract with Rugby Australia, in Rugby Union. So again, Catalan taking a big risk with a player who's shown ill discipline towards legal contracts. He's willing to, not pay attention to what's legally written on paper. But Catalan have been told if he misbehaves, they're getting a massive fine as well, and he's instantly getting sacked. So neither side can afford any screw ups really. No, Scotland in the Six Nations. Really in trouble. Now, this could unite that Scotland team and make them a better team, or it could catastrophically implode and it's a mess. But I think Finn Russell's on thin ice whether he has an international career left, whether he can come back to rugby league. I'm not sure he can. Not rugby league, rugby union, sorry. I don't think he can come back to the international fold. Not while Gregor Townsend is still coaching Scotland, at least. And whether his teammates will be happy in being selected again is another thing as well. So Finn Russell, much like Israel Folau, has really cast himself as an outcast. And how this affects Scotland going forward, who knows? It could make the team bond together and unite and play better. As the world's against us, it's all gone wrong. Much like England, we don't know what's going to happen with the Saracens situation, how that affects England going forward, and how having so many players from Saracens implicated in the salary cap breach who are England internationals, how that's going to affect that squad, and if it's going to divide the England dressing room. And Finn Russell, how it affects the Scotland dressing room. What will tell us is how both sides perform in this tournament. There is a debate about putting him in the Hall of Fame and waiving his eligibility requirements. There's a whole lot of talk, but I think again with the Kobe Bryant thing, we have to allow the dust to settle, allow the investigation to take place into the actual accident that's claimed 9 lives, and to speculate any further would be wrong. We can look at his career, as I say, we can look at his career numbers. We can say he's 4th all-time in points, 5-time NBA champion, MVP, 20-year career at the Lakers, all that. Or we could keep discussing something that, at the moment, there's air crash investigators and legal investigations taking place that to speculate on would be inappropriate. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the NBA. I've said that. I'm not a massive fan of basketball, but some of the comments I've seen online about the whole Kobe Bryant situation, I think they've done a bit too much reporting over here on an American sports star. And considering that some other people have, there's that young football player who was, murdered the other day and died of severe injuries after several fights in Nottinghamshire. Hardly any reporting on that. I think that's wrong. Although someone has been arrested and charged with his murder, I believe. We could talk about that. A whole host, like Ozzy Osbourne's got Parkinson's. There's a lot of political and social things going on. Yet Kobe Bryant is one of the big stories over here in the UK when he's an American. The accident happened in America. I don't understand the British press's obsession, the European press's obsession with what happens in America. Sometimes I think we need to sometimes focus on some issues at home first before focusing on what the Yanks do. But that's my personal opinion. I know there are Americans who are followers of this channel. I know that it's a thing. But at the same time, what has happened. I think what makes it bigger news is that there were kids on board the aircraft, including his daughter and his daughter's friend. And I think that really hits home that if this was a family day trip out, regardless of who he is, this is where it hits home more. Have any of the England squad not been picked to play in the Six Nations? Because at the moment, the only Saracens player that I am aware of who is eligible for England, who has not been picked, is Billy Vunipola because he's broken his arm. So he's injured. But I think the Saracens players are still going to get picked till the end of the season. If they're eligible, Eddie Jones is going to put the strongest team he can put out on the field. regardless of how fans feel about it and the reaction of fans and how divisive it is. He wants to win the Six Nations. He wants to back up that World Cup final appearance with a Six Nations Grand Slam, or winning the Six Nations regardless if it's a Grand Slam or not. I think sometimes in sport, you're not here to make friends, you're here to win. The fact that the salary cap breach raises a lot of questions about the integrity of the governance of rugby union, not only in England, but across the board. That's another debate for another day. But hey, you've got to select the best players. If they're fit and available, select them. I'm not an RFU selector. I'm not a rugby union coach. I played amateur level for a while, but I'm a fan, and well, the amount of sport I watch and looking in, it doesn't look good when some key members of your team are implicated in breaking the rules. Rangers Celtic. I think last season really ignited Scottish football again with Kilmarnock giving it a good go, Hearts leading the league for so long, other teams getting into the top part of the table, and I think Celtic have taken a step back. I don't think they're as dominant as they could be, and Rangers have seen that other teams are wanting to leapfrog them, and Aberdeen have taken a step back. I think Aberdeen had their opportunities to catch Celtic and challenge and failed. But I think the Scottish League is starting to become more competitive for the first time in a very, very long time. It would have been nice to see Kilmarnock lift the trophy. It would have been. I think it would have really given the impetus that Scottish football needed since Aberdeen last won the league back in the 80s. I think the last 20 or so years, Scottish football has stagnated and declined. And I think the lack of competitiveness in the top division, with only two teams regularly winning the majority of the silverware, although other clubs have managed to lift the League Cup and the Scottish Cup, I think hasn't helped. So regardless of what happens for the rest of this season, I think in the future, I think there is starting to become that little bit more competitiveness again at the top level in Scottish football that we haven't seen in a generation. And I think that is important. The issues are they still haven't qualified for Euro 2020, although there is still time with these playoffs. But the fact that Scotland has not had a team at a tournament since France 98, that World Cup, tells you all you need to know about the situation with Scottish football and where the Scottish game is. The fact that for 22 years, they could still yet qualify for Euro 2020, but for 22 years, they have not made a major tournament, tells you all you need to know about the level of where Scotland are. The fact that Wales, England and Northern Ireland are now regularly either getting close to qualification for the smaller nations, and England, World Cup semi-finalists, Wales semi-finalists 4 years ago in France in 2016, tells you all you need to know how far Scotland have dropped behind the other home nations. Northern Ireland regularly now being in the sniff for, or regularly qualifying for tournaments. The Republic now regularly qualifying for tournaments, or being in the shout to make qualification and being close, if not qualifying. Tells you all you need to know about where Scotland are compared to the other home nations. They are lagging far behind in both youth development of players, when they do put a team together, how they play. And it's not Steve Clarke's fault. They are where they are. This is a long-term decline that he's been thrown into because of what he's done at Kilmarnock, what he did at West Brom. He's a very good, solid manager who improves players. Players want to play for him, but unfortunately, the players that are available for selection aren't good enough. And the players coming through the academy systems and the youth systems and league football are not good enough. They're not of the standard they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that is the issue. That's a long-term issue. There's a long-term decline of Scottish football. It's been more pronounced in recent years. And hopefully having a more competitive domestic league where more teams are challenging for that league title or the domestic cup titles can only serve to benefit Scottish football. But we'll see what happens come the end of the season, who wins what. I think it is starting to get nice and tasty. I think and Celtic have been caught up. And it's not just Rangers. I think last season proved that Celtic were human. And Brendan Rodgers leaving mid-season told you a tale in itself. And he's worked a real good miracle at Leicester. He's really turned that team around. They look like a Champions League team. They look like a team that could win the FA Cup, for example. They could win the League Cup, for example. And then that really turns it all on its head. they're in the hunt for 2 trophies this season, possibly 3 if Liverpool really have a wobble and throw the league away, which they did last season, and Leicester go on a run. You know, there's a reason why they're in the Champions League places. There's a reason why they're going to get more points than they did last season, and there's a reason why they're going to get more points than their league winning season. It's the philosophy they have, the squad depth they now have, the way they play. Even when they're not playing well, they win a tough cup game against Brentford away, which could have been a potential banana skin. They got through that with a weakened lineup against a very good defensive team, which were hard to break down, who also gave them a very, very good game and actually outplayed them at times. Whereas Liverpool, 2-0 up against Shrewsbury, get outplayed. They're in the hunt for, they're still technically in the hunt for 3 trophies this season. So do not underestimate this Leicester side. They could at least come away with 2 cup trophies and win and probably put down their most successful season, points-wise, they've ever had. They're on course to get more points than they did when they won the league. So that tells you how good this Leicester side is. Okay. Would you take a higher apprenticeship at BMW? Yes, take it. The good thing about BMW is the oil filters on top of the engine. That's the only good design feature they have, because the indicators get better used, so those bulbs don't get worn out. You have to replace them often. I would honestly say, if you were offered a higher apprenticeship at BMW or any car manufacturer in-house, take it. If you were offered an apprenticeship by the manufacturer, not by an independent mechanic, take it. No. If you're offered the more you're more likely to get made redundant from the independent, because they're operating on a more shoestring budget. If the manufacturer, the actual manufacturer, goes to you and say, we're offering you an in-house apprenticeship at the high level, take it. That's my yes. That's the factory cutting the jobs, but the cars they have sold will need servicing. They will need repairing. So I would honestly say, take up the job offer. Personal opinion. If you are on an agency contract and the full-time company says, we've got pen and paper for you, sign here, we're offering you a job, which means more pay, which means better working conditions, because you'll get more time off paid, you'll get better perks, take it, or at least consider it. If an independent garage comes at you, ask what they're going to pay you an hour when you go past hire apprenticeship. Because I will say this now, regardless of how the factory does, okay, there are cars under warranty on the road, and there are BMWs on the road that are really old to basically new. A lot of companies will lease them as company cars. They will need servicing. If an independent comes at you, they'll probably be able to afford you less money when you come to being full-time. If the manufacturer goes, we want you, take it. If later on down the line you want to work for the independent or the small chain garage, absolutely feel free. Once you've got your full qualifications, go, look, BMW give me all these qualifications. Any BMWs that come in your garage, I can fix like that. Any Minis that come in your garage, I can fix like that. Any, I think, is it Rolls Royce or Bentley or one of the high mark? I think is it Rolls Royce or Bentley that's owned by BMW? I think it's Rolls Royce. If they come in, you can fix them like that. That's where you've got to think. Right, the BMW group owns. I think it is Rolls Royce, Mini. It is definitely Mini, Rolls Royce, and BMW. If any of their cars come in, fix them. And if any Rover MGs come in of a certain age, they were owned by BMW at one point. They'll have some interchangeable parts. You can fix them like that. That's where later on down the line you go to the independent. But for right now, if BMW offer it, take it. I'm a bin man, so I have a choice of about, I think, 4 depots I could transfer to. The one near me is the commercial depot. It is being shut down. What's happening to those staff, I don't know. But where I am right now, my job's pretty safe, because if the company that I'm working for loses the contract, I'm contracted for that depot. So another recycling firm or bin firm or waste collection firm can come in and I just transfer my contract over. I'm pretty lucky that I'm a public sector worker under subcontract. You, however, private sector is a bit more difficult. But BMW, they have contracts for company cars for big business that will have the fleet of company cars from a 1 Series through to a 7 Series. I think you will be pretty good, pretty okay. Doing the mechanics, you'll be fine. Honestly, you'll be fine. because there'll be so many cars in circulation that will need servicing and repairing. So you'll be fine. If you go to a BMW specialist that's licensed under BMW, that they're given, they're independent, but they get some factory funding, like a BMW specialist mechanic. Then again, you know, no, you can get a university degree, and it's not as easy to get a job as you think. I didn't get a university degree. I have full-time employment. I have got friends who did university degrees in a variety of subjects. They're not now working in the industries they got their degrees in. Just putting that one out there. I've got mates who got university degrees who are cleaners. So it's not as easy when you're going to university and getting the job that you want or on the salary that you want. You are more likely to get a better paying salary. But a lot of people I know have gone to uni and come out with all these degrees, and not all of them have got necessarily the job they want. Just putting that out there. But yeah, back to sports. I mean, I'm only going to be on for another 20 or so minutes, so I'm not having a late one tonight. I've got a lot to do in the flat. The flat, if you want to have a look, is it's an absolute tip. So I've got to tidy up my living room and move some things around over tonight and tomorrow night. So when the tradies come in Thursday daytime when I'm at work, they can just get access to the bits they need to inspect. But yeah, back to sports. The two big stories that I'm talking about today that I've really thought about is the Christian Eriksen transfer. I think he's gone on the cheap. I think Inter have done a great bit of business, and Inter have been very active in this transfer window, picking up players for I believe below market value. They've got Ashley Young, they've got Alexis Sanchez, and they've got Christian Eriksen. So they've got three Premier League quality players. Admittedly, Young and Sanchez aren't playing at their best at the moment, and you can debate whether that's a strengthening of Inter's squad, but they're clearly interested in making a push for the Serie A title. Man United, I mean, their transfer policy, Mourinho has been very open about his battles about transfer policy and how since the Glazers have taken over, post-Ferguson, managers have not necessarily been as totally in control of transfer policy as the transfer market would have you believe. I think they've overpaid for Maguire massively, and I think Maguire's feeling the pressure of being at the bigger club, even though Leicester have proven themselves to be a far more better run club in recent seasons and having won the Premier League more recently. And you look at it, and yeah, I think Man United have overpaid on a lot of players. Mourinho has been very critical about one of the reasons why he left the club was the lack of control over the transfer policy. He was very critical of that, and that's one of the reasons why he's no longer there. So he was very upset about not having a say over who he could sign and for how much. I don't know if Fergie had the energy left. I think he might have stayed on a bit too long, and it shows how good a manager Ferguson was at getting towards the end of his time an average squad still silverware. He got an average team trophies, so it shows how good he was as a manager that he was still able to get something out of that group of players, and there's still some of that core there that are there now. When it comes to should have Eriksen gone to Man United, I think no, he's gone to a club that's on the up. They're challenging for a title. They're making moves in the transfer. They're freshening up that squad. They're adding, players that he's played with or against in the Premier League. He's going to a club on the up. Man United are not a club on the up. I don't know whether Ferguson would have kept them in the top four. I really don't. I think since the Glazers have taken over, yes, they've been very, very successful. They've still been successful, but you look at the Premier League, they were more successful before the Glazers took over. They had more trophies on average. You look at the Premier League era, the first half of the Premier League era was Man United dominance. You look at the Glazers take over, they're less dominant. They're still winning trophies. They're still winning leagues. They're still winning Champions Leagues, FA Cups, League Cups, but they're not winning them as often. And towards the end, it's tailing off. They still win trophies, not as much. Since he's gone, the silverware has started to dry up. They've still got the odd trophy in there, but it's not enough. They've got a Europa League and an FA Cup and a Charity Shield. It's just there's not enough silverware coming in. Yes, they did, but you got to look. A lot of the Man United fans are glory hunters. More people in Manchester support other clubs than Manchester United. Most of their fan base doesn't come from the greater Manchester area. There's a lot of Man United fans in the south of England. and that rubs up a lot of football fans the wrong way around here. Even though I'm a Blackburn fan, I wasn't born in Lancashire. I've never lived in Blackburn, but I've stuck with my team when they've really, had it rough. We've been in League One. I think Man United fans, they got so used to success that when it starts going wrong, they're like sheep. But the media's obsession with Man United is also mind boggling. I know it's more than that, much more than that. There's a lot. The Asian community are big Man United fans. If you go to loads of, it doesn't matter if it's Sikh, Muslim, or Hindu shops, I bet you 7 out of 10 of them are Man United fans. They are the Asian community really follows Man United for whatever reason. Whereas the Caribbean community, for example, they will more likely follow the team of the local area, and Arsenal, and Tottenham. It is what it is. There are some social reasons why certain communities support certain clubs. But no, Man United, I mean, a lot of Man United fans don't realise that in the 80s and the 70s, the team were crap. They were absolutely woeful, winning a few FA Cups, but for the most part, Man United in the 70s and most of the 80s were not a good team. Blackburn going to go back to the Premier League. There's still a fair bit of the season left. The playoff picture in the Championship, it gets very congested. For the playoff hunt, it does get congested in there. I think if we were to get promoted this season, we'll be relegated first attempt. I don't think that there's enough in the squad for the team to stay up. And with Bradley Dack out, that's a bit of a concern. But I can see them being a Premier League side again, yeah. Under the current ownership, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the current ownership. I've made that very clear on this channel many, many times. But I can see them getting back to the Premier League, absolutely. I think any team from the Championship could make that promotion pushing and get there. It's staying in the Premiership that's the problem, as we found out. And as Derby County found out that one season they came back up and they went back down with the record low points haul for the top flight. That was a woefully bad season because they were underprepared for the challenge ahead. There is a demographic difference. I mean, West Ham do have more fans from an Afro-Caribbean background than Chelsea. I can tell you that for a fact. They do have quite a few Afro-Caribbean fans, but Arsenal, Man United, they seem to appeal to the wider demographic. Same as Tottenham. It could be the locations of the city that they're in or the area that they're in, and their appeal to the wider non-local population as well. But I think you also got to look at the players that have played for the club in the 90s especially, and then you get an idea of the demographic, but it's also the demographics of the fan bases historically. West Ham, working man's club from the East End. Chelsea, West London, wealthy West London. Arsenal, originally East London, then North London, so the historical locations. And Man United's technically being in Salford, a richer part of Greater Manchester. It's generally why. Because you got to look at the divisiveness of teams in London. It's very tribal in London, really tribal. You got a lot of teams all on top of each other, and it can be exceptionally tribal. It's exceptionally tribal in London. You notice what the area of London you're in. You've got to be careful the jersey you wear because it's a very, when it comes to football, London's a very divided city, and we've seen Millwall, West Ham, and Palace, and technically Brighton's their biggest rivals, even though they're from that part of London. It's got the population to support those. It's got the population to support those fan bases. Plain and simple. It's got the population to support so many professional teams. It has the population, same as the Northwest. They have the population, there to support so many teams. But you got to look at New York. North America is obviously franchise system. You got to look at the New York metropolitan area. How many professional teams are in the New York metropolitan area? You have more than 5 professional sports teams in New York. the fact they're not all in the NFL is one thing, but you have to look. I mean, it was the New York Mets, now it's the Brooklyn Mets. You've got the New York Giants, the New York Jets, the Knicks. You've got the Islanders, the Rangers, the Major League Rugby franchise as well. There's Rugby United New York or wherever it is. You've got the New Jersey Devils in New Jersey, just across the river, which is technically classed as the urban area of New York. And then you've got Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres just in the state of New York, not actually that far away in real terms. So yeah, I can tell you now that the New York metropolitan area can support a lot of professional sport. Same as the LA metropolitan area. You've got the Anaheim Ducks, LA Kings, Clippers, Lakers, Chargers. What's the other LA NFL team? There's another LA NFL team. Oh, I've forgotten now. LA Rams. You know, that these urban areas in North America can support multiple professional teams. You've got you got New York Red Bulls and FC New York in the MLS. You've got two LA teams in the MLS. So yeah, they can support multiple professional teams. On the same token, could New York get a rugby league team? Yes. There's enough disposable income in the New York area to support multiple. It's like Toronto. You've got multiple teams in Toronto. They'll support crap, but they'll turn up. The Raiders moved to Vegas. Yes, the Oakland Raiders have moved to Vegas as of next season. They had issues with their stadium. The Raiders are a badly run franchise in their history. Really, they've been moved more than once. How long they stay in Vegas, whether they go back to Oakland, time will tell. But you got to look at the Oakland area. It's not a pleasant area to live in. I've got a friend who used to live in that part of California, and he said Oakland is not a pleasant place to live in. It really isn't. So the fact that they've moved to Vegas tells you all you need to know. And the Raiders fan base is rowdy anyway. So whether Vegas buys into the NFL like they did to the NHL, we'll wait and see. But Vegas has been underutilized as a sporting city for a very, very long time. They bought into the Golden Knights in the NHL. That was an expansion team. That was a new team. How different will it be with the Raiders? Will they buy in as much? Time will tell. But the team has to be successful. Now, the Golden Knights has been pretty successful since they've been there. But but it's the demographic of Vegas is changing. There's a lot of companies are putting their headquarters there because it's got a big airport. It's a rapidly growing city. The tax rate is low as well. So industries and offices and companies are moving to Vegas. It's a growing city. It's a young city. It's more than just gambling and tourism. There's a lot of money in Vegas. It's more than just gambling, but it is an underutilized sporting city. But the facilities are there. You've got to use what's available facility wise. And I think professional sports have realized there's money in Vegas. Why have we not utilized this market more? And ironically, professional wrestling didn't used to sell out in Vegas until AEW came along. WWE could never sell out Vegas. TNA could never sell out Vegas. WCW couldn't sell out Vegas. A new pro wrestling company emerges this year in AEW. In the last 12 months, they've already sold out their first show in Vegas. So the city of Vegas has changed as a demographic from just a boxing city where they would have the big, Caesar's Palace boxing to UFC going there. You've got NHL in there. They're probably going to have an MLS team at some point, no doubt, because that league keeps growing. They're probably going to have a Major League Rugby team at some point, no doubt, because Major League Rugby is growing and there's money there. I think two of the Nevada universities are based out of Vegas. It was a matter of time before the NFL went, we're missing a trick by not going here. I wouldn't be surprised if Major League Baseball moves a team there, relocation, and I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA looks at Vegas at some point going, we are really overlooking this location because there's money to be had in Vegas, more than just gambling. There's a disposable income from people in Vegas. It does surprise me that it's taken this long for the NFL, the NHL, and all the other sporting leagues in the United States and Canada to go, Vegas, we could do something here. More than just a boxing MMA city. They go, we could actually, put a professional sports team there, or host professional sporting events that's more than just what it is. If pro wrestling is finally selling out Vegas, it tells you the demographic of the city has changed. There's more families there. There's more disposable income. There's companies are now putting their regional and national and global headquarters there. It tells you that the city has money, but it's less of a gambling city than it used to be. It really is. Oh God, yeah. It's the culture. It's the culture of the sport. Here it's a club system. Over there it's a franchise system. So here the clubs have the power. Over there the league has the power. It's how the sport has evolved. They have no promotion relegation. We have promotion relegation. It's how the sport's evolved over there. It's how it's organised. It's how it's done. It's just I've done a video on it. It's a cultural thing. If it did happen here, I mean, Milton Keynes Dons, the old Wimbledon, the fans had lost faith in the club. The club was in chaos. The owners had to move it. They get good crowds in Milton Keynes, and the new AFC Wimbledon have been given permission to build on Plough Lane. So it's gone full circle. The club, became reborn, worked its way through the non-league, came back to the Football League. FC United of Manchester, going through the leagues. The fans, some fans were unhappy at the Glazers, formed their own club, and it can happen. But yeah, I think if on mainland Europe there would be absolute carnage. But again, clubs have merged before to form new clubs, and you have to look at the European football leagues and rugby leagues to notice how many times two clubs like Catalan Dragons is a product of two clubs struggling to survive in the French league financially, merging together to form Catalan. So it can work. It is interesting how they're the most capitalist country in the world, but their leagues, their professional leagues, seem to be more socialist than ours. But ours more capital. I get where you're coming from there. I don't think that they were intended that way. I think that's an unintended consequence. But it's just how their sporting culture works. It's just how it works over there. It's a different culture. It seems to have gone over to Australia and New Zealand a little bit. But it's just how their sporting psyche works over there. It's just how it's evolved over time and how their sports evolved. You can't put a finger on it. It's just how it's evolved over there. Really, honestly. So it is what it is. Going back to your first Arsenal match, and you may end up in Tottenham. I ended up in Tottenham once on the high road, actual Tottenham, not White Hart Lane Tottenham. We're talking actual Tottenham. I used to do some work for my uncle in London, and I got the tube and the bus, and I said to him, like, I've got to find this place. And he gave me some really bad directions over the phone. So I kept walking, and I ended up in the wrong borough, and I ended up on the wrong street. And a really nice gang member politely gave me directions, ironically, because I had a bit of something on me to trade for directions. And he was like, "You what?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll trade you this for directions to where I've got to go." And he was like, "Okay." So I've ended up in Tottenham. It's not a pleasant place to be if you don't know where you are, but I had no problems because I had a commodity that the geezer wanted, and I got what I wanted out of it, which was back down that way, mate. You've gone 2 miles too far. I went, there you go, mate. Let's sort you out for this evening. Yeah. Want any more? Find this number. What? Yeah, I know. So I did a bit of bartering, and I didn't get shot or stabbed, and he may or may not have had a positive evening of smoke. There you go. But yeah, no, you have to be careful in certain areas if you're wearing the wrong football shirt or if you're in the wrong neighbourhood when it comes to sport. It's not just a British thing; it's a global thing. Because my cousin survived the River Plate getting relegated in Argentina that season because he was in Buenos Aires, and a couple of Boca Juniors fans might have saved their lives. When I say fans, I mean ultras, because that could have got messy. So yeah, sometimes going on across the wrong street or down the wrong turning could prove a mistake. And this is where I think sometimes sports fans and sport gets it wrong with the passion or the notoriety of fan bases. It can get a bit, past what's acceptable. But it is what it is. Right, I've been going for nearly an hour, so I did say I'm going to do it for an hour this evening. I really appreciate all you guys tuning in, even though it's only for a short one tonight. Obviously, I would have liked to have stayed on longer, but I do have a lot of stuff I've got to do here. So thank you very, very much for all your questions and input. And yeah, I will move on from there. Thank you very, very much, obviously, for all your questions and input, and I really appreciate it. And I'll have some more videos for you very soon. And obviously, check out what I've posted, obviously, today about Israel Folau and Christian Eriksen, because I think they're well worth a watch, obviously. Upselling myself. And if you're new to the channel, if you stumbled across this live stream, just give us a like and subscribe if you like what you see. And I'll have some more videos for you soon. Adios.